Today on the show, we're diving into the world of economic indicators. These are the numbers that tell us how the economy is doing. Things like GDP, unemployment rates, and consumer confidence. But what do these indicators really mean? How are they calculated, and how should we interpret them? We'll break it all down: incoming transmission, origin, dead zone, code fragment matches Terran cryptography, pre-cataclysm era. "That's impossible," murmured Archscribe Lauren of the Varen archives. "Terrans are extinct." But the stars had already started to tremble. It began in the black silence beyond the Perseid fringe, a region so void of life that most galactic maps simply labeled it, "Here be nothing." Yet from that empty stretch of dead stars came a pulse, a signal so sharp, so ancient, it sliced clean through 5 layers of subspace interference like a knife through silk. Frequencies that hadn't existed in 50 millennia suddenly crackled, back to life. And at its core, a name long erased from galactic memory screamed into existence. Project War God, Awaken. Across the galaxy, listening posts and research satellites buckled under the weight of the signal. On the planetary megastation of Aldrex 5, a superintelligent AI suffered a logic fault just trying to decipher the encryption. By the time the Accord Security Council was convened, the message had already reached 11 star clusters. The Terrans, those war-born, extinction-forged legends, were waking up. In orbit around the shattered remains of a dwarf star, a long-dead battle platform stirred. Its hull, blackened and pitted with age, opened like the petals of a rusted steel flower. Internal reactors, powered by stardust and vengeance, hummed to life. Giant cylindrical pods lined its inner core, each one sealed with symbols of a dead Earth. Cryostasis integrity, 98%. Heartbeat detected, 741, 1 heartbeat, then 10, then thousands. A final, grinding click echoed through the vault as a central pod hissed open, spilling frost and silence into the chamber. A massive figure stepped forward, breath steaming against the frigid air. General Ilya Morn opened his eyes. His first sensation was gravity pressing against bone. His second was the thrum of war in his chest. It was back, the old instinct, the Yar, one humanity had designed him for, to lead, to strike, to finish what others couldn't even begin. "Status," he growled, voice like gravel scraping steel. A monitor blinked to life. The same words burned across every panel, every surface, every neural thread: Project War God. Active. And just beneath it, smaller, pulsing in deep crimson: Primary objective: Vindication. Far away, in the halls of the Galactic Accord, panic bloomed. The Varen scribes began to weep. The Karathi strategists prepared evacuation plans. The Dathari monarchs lit their emergency pyres. They had built their empires on the ashes of Earth, and now the ashes had caught fire. The stars had every reason to tremble, because the war gods were rising again. For you, with the help of some experts, to make sense of the numbers that shape our world. We were never built to sleep forever. We were built to wake when the stars forgot to fear us. Ilya Morn, commander of the Soulborn line. The floor trembled beneath his feet, not with instability but with purpose. As the final locks disengaged, the cryovault fully opened like a blooming warflower of alloy and obsidian. Frost hissed from the seams. One by one, sarcophagi lined with ancient Terran steel lit up, pulsing with ghostlight blue. Ilya Morn walked slowly between them, his armored boots striking the deck with precise rhythm. He wasn't alone anymore. Inside the capsules lay sleeping giants, each a god-killer in flesh. 7 feet tall, genetically sculpted, armored in subdermal alloys laced with quantum fibers. Human, yes, but only just. He looked up. A glass panel above revealed the void outside. 1,000 years of dust clung to the outer hull. Beyond that, the stars, still watching, still forgetting. Morn activated the ship's neural interface, a soft biobridge that linked him to the core AI. Status report: The voice that responded was cold, clipped, and unmistakably Terran. All War God units remain viable. Stasis integrity above 96%. Vital functions stable. Planet Forge Theta 7. Status dormant. Contingency plan. Lucifer. On standby. Morn clenched his fist. Initiate planetary ignition. Time to forge. Outside, deep within a moon orbiting the dying sun, furnaces that had slumbered for 50,000 years suddenly lit up in scarlet. Light. Molten rivers of programmable matter flowed like blood through the veins of ancient forges. Orbital construct arrays groaned to life, assembling dropships, exoframes, and rail platforms the size of cities. They weren't preparing for war. They were war. As his soldiers began to stir, Morn walked to one sarcophagus at the far end, larger, older, covered in symbols from Earth's last days. He placed a gloved hand on the glass. Wake her. Unit Aura M9. Awakened. The glass dissolved, and she stepped out like a blade pulled from a scabbard. Eyes sharp as void knives, her voice like gravity itself. Commander. Aura. We're back. They exchanged a nod. Words weren't needed between war gods. At that same moment across the galaxy, alien civilizations detected a sudden surge of activity in what had been a dead zone. Dozens of systems flared to life in coordinated bursts of power, each linked to Terran war code transmissions. The Accord scrambled, ships. Panic clutched at them like ice, but it was already too late. The tombs of steel and bone were now resurrection chambers. The humans have awakened. Final transmission from the Alari scout vessel. Golden memory, lost near the Perseid fringe. The stars weren't supposed to light up like this. On the Accord's central citadel, spinning above the twin suns of Carthus Prime, Ambassador Velo of the Karathi delegation gripped the edge of the observation platform with trembling fingers. The holographic map before her updated in real time, and with each blink, more star systems flared red. Not just red, Terran red. What do you mean 13 systems are showing synchronized activity? She demanded. The response came from the AI Nexus core, voice sterile and devoid of comfort. Cryptographic patterns confirm resurgence of Terran command protocols. Project War God confirmed. Containment impossible. Galactic broadcast priority alpha engaged. Someone screamed in the Agoyao chamber behind her. Others tried to flee the council floor. Chaos flooded the halls of the most powerful government in the galaxy. Vilo turned slowly to the central screen. One by one, the known grave worlds, ancient Terran outposts presumed dead, came alive. Forge flares, AI uplinks, planetary ignition, sequences. Every beacon echoed the same message. We remember. The stars flickered as if recoiling. And then came the silence pulse. 12 scout ships, dispatched to the origin point of the first awakening, vanished without a trace. No wreckage, no debris, just static. Their final broadcast showed a Terran sigil, black wings wrapped around a burning star. And then, nothing. Back in the Accord's war chamber, Admiral Silvas of the Dothari Empire leaned forward, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. They're not broadcasting threats, he whispered. No, Velo said coldly. Because they don't need to. This isn't a warning. This is a reckoning. Meanwhile, light years away on the shattered moon of Lyria Kent, a pirate clan known for raiding pre-cataclysm ruins opened a sealed Terran vault. Inside, they found a still functional combat frame. They laughed, then it opened its eyes. What happened next wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. Every pirate dissolved in seconds. Their flagship twisted inward on itself, imploding in gravitational agony. A single message transmitted from the wreckage. The stars forgot what we are, let them remember. Panic turned to hysteria. The Zarkoth Dominion demanded answers. The Raxol theocracy began stockpiling antimatter reserves. Old alliances reactivated war pacts signed 5 millennia ago. But deep in space, among the stars they had long claimed as their own, The war gods moved in silence, methodical, precise, and without mercy. They didn't announce their arrival. They didn't make speeches. They simply awakened. We never left our weapons behind. We left them sleeping. Commander Ilya Mornin, the void between suns. Something shifted. From a distance, the Forge World Theta-7 looked dead. A silent hunk of shattered crust, encased in planetary scars, floating aimlessly through a debris belt older than civilization itself. Every database marked it as uninhabitable, inert, forgotten, but the Forge World was never dead. It had simply been waiting. Now its crust cracked like the shell of an ancient beast. Glowing rivers of plasma burst upward, slicing open the sky with blinding fury. Molten machinery surged to life beneath the surface, shaking off millennia of dust and ash. Factories the size of continents groaned awake. Then the singing began. Not music, not language, machine hymns. They rose from deep within the planet's heart, pulsing, rhythmic, resonant, coded in frequencies older than any species, still breathing. Above Theta-7, orbital construct rings lit up in blinding sequences of red and gold. Drone swarms poured out like insects from a hive, guided not by AI, but by vengeance hardwired into their subroutines. Inside a deep forge hall, General Ilya Morn stood on a rising platform as golden heat and magnetic lifts swirled around him. "Bring me our firstborn," he said. From the chasm below, a titan emerged. It stood 50 meters tall, armored in burnished carbon steel, its fists wide enough to crush dropships. Its core was a living fusion reactor, pulsing with fury. Across its chest, the Terran symbol of war, O, the Omega Flame. Aura M9 stood beside Morn, her eyes tracking the behemoth. "You're really going to wake them all?" Morn didn't blink. "If one war god isn't enough to remind the stars, we'll give them the full choir." Elsewhere in the galaxy, monitoring stations lit up with warnings. Unidentified mass. Drives activating ancient mechanized hostile detected Forge World ignition. Confirmed. The Raxal fleets scrambled. A dozen empires redirected satellites to record what they couldn't understand. But none of them could stop what was already underway. Back. On Theta-7, warframes marched in perfect silence across the cooling forge lands. Ships stitched from armor older than most star systems drifted into launch paths. And above it all, the war choir sang. A message was encoded in the forge's activity, buried deep in ancient Terran command code. Only one system, an abandoned human archive floating on a rogue asteroid, managed to decrypt it. "We are not here to conquer. We are here to remember. The stars have forgotten how to fear. Let them relearn through fire." Aura M9. The Zarkoth didn't wait. For 3,000 cycles, the insectoid war clans had expanded through raw brutality. They were efficient, merciless, and utterly convinced that humanity was a ghost, a myth built from fractured data and battlefield legends. Until now. Now, a dozen Terran Forge worlds had begun to stir, and Zarkoth High Command did not hesitate. Delay was weakness. They launched a preemptive strike with 4 dreadnought armadas and 500,000 soldiers bred for atmospheric subjugation. Their target, Theta-7, the largest awakened Terran Forge world. Their objective? Glass the planet before the humans fully. They came in fast, quiet, invisible across most detection spectra. It didn't matter. They were seen before they ever broke FTL. The moment they crossed into the Theta system, every Zarkoth vessel shuddered. Not from weapons fire, but from signal bleed. Human code, old and weaponized, poured across the stars like oil across fire. It crawled into their systems, whispering forgotten words. One dreadnought's AI simply shut down. Another detonated its own ammunition racks. The others pushed forward, slingshotting into high orbit and straight into a gauntlet of war-born nightmares. The Terran defense net came alive. First came the Karis blades, orbital smart mines made from dark matter and hate. They danced through the void like falling stars, weaving through Zarkoth shields as if they weren't even there. Hulls tore open. Crews screamed in languages never meant to know fear. Then the Omega cannons fired. They didn't glow. They didn't roar. They simply erased. A lance of uncolor tore through a cruiser group, leaving behind silence and floating fragments of hull, carved so cleanly they hadn't even scorched. Admiral Ziltar of the Zarkoth stood on the shattered bridge of the Vengeance incarnate, blood dripping from his claws as systems failed around him. "They're not using strategy," he rasped. "No," whispered his dying tactician. "They're using memory." On the forge's surface below, Aura M9 watched it all from an observation spire carved from obsidian steel. The sky above was a theater of flame. The old songs hummed behind her, machine choirs syncing with orbital arrays. Ilya Morn joined her, his armor still streaked with activation residue. "They never stood a chance," she said. "They still don't understand who we are." He nodded once. "But they will." In less than 40 minutes, the entire Zarkoth strike force was gone. Not routed, not captured, gone. No messages returned to their homeworlds. Just one Terran code fragment, broadcast galaxy-wide on an open frequency. "You should have let us sleep. There are weapons even gods feared to build, but they built them anyway." Varan Archive Fragment 0211D. The Last Wars. The Zarkoth fleet was gone, not defeated, erased. Entire empires watched in stunned silence as the Terrans, the myth, the nightmare, the fireborn ghosts, demonstrated what true war looked like. The message was clear. Humanity had not returned to talk. They had returned to remind. In the vaulted halls of the Galactic Accord, panic had long since boiled into desperation. The council chambers echoed with the clashing voices of species that hadn't agreed on anything in centuries. But in this moment they agreed on one thing. The war gods cannot be stopped by conventional means. A flickering hologram of Forge World Theta 7 rotated in the air between them, red veins pulsing across its surface. Living infrastructure, growing every hour. "They're building faster than our AI projections can predict," said Grand Strategist, Cole of the Raxal Theocracy, his gill fronds twitching. "Their industrial capacity is unquantifiable, and they haven't even attacked yet," hissed high-voiced Drelka of the Vossi Swarm. "We struck first. They simply responded." Silence followed. Then, the oldest being in the room stood. Velo of the Karathi, the historian-turned-ambassador. She spoke with a voice like dust scraping glass. "There is one option," she said, "but it is forbidden." Every eye turned to her. "We unsealed the record 2 cycles ago, when the signal first reached us. During the final days of the Terran expansion, the humans encountered something at the edge of known space. Something they couldn't destroy. A hush fell. They called it Leviathan Null. A weapon, yes, but not of Terran origin. Something they found. Something ancient, even to them. They sealed it in a black cradle and swore it would never be used." The chamber held its breath. "And you propose we—" "What?" asked the Vossi voice. "Unleash it?" "Yes," Velo said simply. "It could destroy the galaxy. No. It will destroy them." Across space, aboard the Terran flagship Hammer of Dusk, Aura M9 felt the change. Her eyes narrowed. The void shifted. Not a weapon fired. Not a fleet moved. But something deep stirred. Something older than war. Something even Terrans had once feared. "We're not alone anymore," she whispered. Morn joined her at the viewport. "No," he said. "They've opened the last door." And in a starless gulf known only as the Nullfold, a prison cracked open. Something vast and voiceless moved. Chains forged from gravity and quantum probability snapped one by one. The Leviathan was waking, but it didn't open its eyes to the Accord. It opened them to humanity, and it remembered them. The stars rippled, not with light, but with memory. In the void between systems, where even light feared to travel, space folded in on itself. Not torn, not bent, obeyed. From that unnatural distortion, the Leviathan null emerged. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a being. It was a wound in reality, fused with machinery, entropy, and will. A cathedral of obsidian ribs and black star matter. It moved without propulsion, radiating a presence that made lesser minds scream before they could. Form thought. Across hundreds of sectors, sensors failed. Subspace collapsed into static. Living things across the galaxy, across species, awoke from sleep drenched in cold sweat, gasping. On the Accord command station above Carthus Prime, Velo stood before the Leviathan's incoming trajectory. It's headed for Theta 7, she confirmed. They don't even see it coming. But she was wrong. Inside the Terran command vault buried deep in Theta 7's molten core, Aura M9 stared at a rotating data crystal. Her expression hardened. It's coming, she said. Morn barely glanced up. Leviathan null. You remember? Did I remember putting it in chains? Silence. Then a slow, measured breath. They just doomed themselves. High above the Forge world, as the sky tore apart and the Leviathan arrived, Terran anti-orbit batteries did nothing. No fire, no defense, no scrambling. The war gods simply watched. The Accord, hidden behind sensor cloaks in far orbit, waited. The Leviathan halted, dead still, massive beyond comprehension, above Theta 7. And then it spoke. Not in sound, in vibration. The crust of the Forge planet cracked under the resonance. Every Terran warframe powered down. A full second passed, then another. Then the Leviathan projected a shape, shifting ungraspable geometry onto the Terran sky. Symbols, numbers, names, Terran names. Aura stepped outside the vault, watching the display. It remembers us, she said softly. Morn nodded. We made it forget pain, not us. Then came the twist. The Leviathan bowed. 1,000-kilometer-long spires bent ever so slightly toward the Forge world, its core flickering with violet light. Not aggression, not rage, recognition, and from that impossible thing, a single pulse. Escaped. One code fragment beamed directly into the Accord's nearest listening post. You broke the seal. But they were always the jailers, not me. Then Leviathan null vanished, folded back into the black fold, leaving no trace behind but its judgment. The Accord command center fell into silence. They called the gods of war, Velo whispered, and the old god answered them first. The galaxy held its breath. Forge world Theta 7 floated in perfect searing silence, wreathed in the dull glow of its newly completed judicator array. 100 orbital pillars, forged from the bones of stars and slaved to a unified Terran. Mind core, now stretched across the system like a war halo. Above it, a Terran armada blotted out constellations, warframes, dread cores. Artificial gods rebuilt from myth and memory. Every transmission channel went silent as one voice, calm, female, ageless, echoed across every world, every language, every mind. You feared our return. You feared the gods of war. But it was not fear that woke us. It was the sound of your arrogance, shouting into silence. Inside the Accord's crisis core, Velo stood alone now. The others had fled, some to their homeworlds, others to fortified bunkers on moons that would no longer matter. She stared at the transmission as it continued. We do not seek dominion. We do not crave empire. We do not wish to burn what remains. But we will not be erased again. Across the galaxy, Terran fleets appeared not to conquer, but to stand watch. Each planet that had aided in humanity's past erasure now faced a hovering war platform, silent but ready. On the diplomatic relay world of Seraph's Gate, Aura M9 stood on the obsidian platform of the reactivated Terran embassy. Its obsidian, towers taller than any fortress. Before her knelt the last free commander of the Zarkoth. What is your demand? He rasped. Aura's eyes glowed dimly, not with rage, with memory, not surrender, understanding. The Zarkoth shook his head. You are war incarnate. No, she whispered. We were made to end war. From above, the Judicator array pulsed once. Every planetary system lit up with Terran code. Then, silence. No worlds exploded, no invasions came. Instead, blue light scattered through the void, planting memory arcs, each a living record of what humanity had endured. Of the betrayal, the exile, the silence, they were gifts or warnings. The Accord received the final message on a signal keyed to their oldest encryption. We remember. You now must choose. Learn from what we preserved, or be reshaped by what we never forgot. In the deep black beyond the spiral arm, Leviathan Null drifted silently, watching. Judgment withheld. For now. Back on Theta 7, Ilya Morn stood beside Aura M9, watching the galaxy realign around them. We gave them a choice, she said. Morn nodded. It's more than they gave us.